We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Israeli Prime Minister urges nations to speak up on sexual violence on October 7th as he meets hostages.
You've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you?
European Union faces a huge risk of terrorist attacks over the Christmas period. EU's Home Affairs chief says it is due to the fallout from the Israel-Hamas conflict. 8th Annual Artificial Intelligence Summit begins in New York to delve into the future of applied AI. Regulating emerging technologies big on agenda. And in the Junior Hockey World Cup 2023, India starts campaign with impressive 4-2 win against Korea. On to details now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday said that he had heard stories of sexual abuse at a meeting with hostages returned by Hamas during a recent pause in the fighting in Gaza. He called out on the Women's and Human Rights Organization to act on it, stating that he did not hear their outrage. Meanwhile, Israeli police released the accounts of sexual violence in Hamas attack. As per the individual accounts, victims were tortured, physically abused, raped, burned alive and dismembered. Israeli police said last month it was investigating possible sexual crimes by some of the few hundred Gaza militants they arrested after the devastating October 7th Hamas attack.
I say to the women's rights organizations, to the human rights organizations, you've heard of the rape of Israeli women? Horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation? Where the hell are you? I expect all civilized leaders, governments, nations to speak up against this atrocity.
Well, Netanyahu also said the ground operation had expanded to the south of the Gaza Strip and that there is no place beyond our reach. As Israel continues, it's one of the biggest ground combat in Gaza since the truce with Hamas was called off last week. Its troops have surrounded Khan Yunis. The Israeli forces also dubbed the day as the most intense day of fighting since its ground operation started in late October. While Israeli forces further said that they have tightened the noose around southern Gaza's main city.
60 days after the war began, our forces are now encircling the Khan Yunis area in the southern Gaza Strip. Simultaneously, we continue to secure our accomplishments in the northern Gaza Strip. Those who thought that the IDF would not know how to renew the fighting after the pause were mistaken, and Hamas is already feeling this. Many Hamas operatives, including senior commanders, have been eliminated in recent days.
Well, the European Union is facing a huge risk of terrorist attacks during the Christmas period, the bloc's Home Affairs Division warned on Tuesday. Ahead of the meeting of EU Home Affairs ministers in Brussels, the Union's Home Affairs Chief, Eva Johansson, has said that with the war between Israel and Hamas and the polarization it causes in our society, with the upcoming holiday season, especially Christmas, there is a huge risk of terrorist attacks in the European Union. Johansson's assessment is based on the steep increase in extremist propaganda circulating online, as well as the rising threat level in member states amid recent attacks in Belgium and France. And updates now on Russia-Ukraine war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky cancelled plans to appeal directly to U.S. lawmakers for new aid on Tuesday. He cancelled it as a partisan battle over immigration policy threatened to derail President Joe Biden's request for billions of dollars for Kyiv's fight against Russia. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, a Republican, said funds for Ukraine must be tied to transformative change in U.S. immigration policy. Meanwhile, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he would try to break an impasse over additional congressional funding for Ukraine, offering Republicans the chance to add an amendment on border policy to the legislation.
I will offer the Republicans the first amendment if we move forward on border, on immigration, and they can put whatever they want. Let's remember here, it was the Republicans who put border on the table. We did not. They have a responsibility. If they believe border should be part of Ukraine, which is so vital to our country, let them propose an amendment that can get 60 votes.
Well, amid a darkening outlook for Ukraine with uncertainty swirling over the passage of major assistance packages, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said Kyiv did not expect wartime support from its partners to decrease and that there has been no slowdown in deliveries of weapons.
Our partners understand that what is at stake in Ukraine is much, much bigger than just the future of Ukraine. And therefore, I do not anticipate any slowdown or any decrease in neither attention nor support that is coming.
З боку Сполучених Штатів напередодні Білий Дім звернувся до Конгресу.
No one will ever put us at the table with Russia until we ourselves decide that this is the way forward. I think we have proven many times before that we are not the ones who can be hand-walked.
And the U.S. envoy to Budapest sharply criticized the Hungarian government of Viktor Orban on Tuesday for disregarding the interest of its NATO allies and seeking closer ties with Russia. In a speech at AmCham to U.S. companies that have invested in Hungary, Ambassador David Pressman said Hungary has thrived as a member of the European Union and NATO, but feels comfortable disregarding the interest of those same allies and our alliance, including during a time of war in Europe. That disregard, he said, is evident when the Prime Minister embraces Putin. Relations between Budapest and Washington have soured because of Hungary's foot-dragging over the ratification of Sweden's NATO accession and also over Prime Minister Viktor Orban's warm ties with Moscow despite the war in Ukraine. And moving on, in a ray of light, an 8-year-old Roman Oleksiv has returned to school in the western Ukrainian city of Kyiv. This comes as another step towards an unlikely recovery from life-threatening injuries sustained last year. The Roman has yet to undergo years more treatment to fully recover, including surgery, hair implants and ear corrections. He prefers to engage in his passions that include ballroom dancing and music. And today in Manhattan, AI industry experts will gather for the 8th annual AI Summit in New York to forecast industry's trajectory. The summit, spanning 2 days, unites knowledge leaders, policymakers and corporate executives for discourse and workshops. Amid a global push for tech regulation, it assumes significance. DD India's correspondent Sally Patterson delivers more details on this crucial conclave.
It's an opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names in AI. Representatives from technology companies, financial institutes and governments are set to hold talks and then stick around for networking afterwards. Tech giants including Microsoft, OpenAI and Google are all on the bill. Organisers say the summit, held on December 6th and 7th, will showcase how businesses are implementing and financing AI in a rapidly changing world. It comes just over a month after the UK held a major AI safety summit, looking at the risks of the economy and the industry. World leaders around the world are grappling with how to regulate it. In New York this week, the risks of AI will once again be in focus, tackling bias in technology, for example, but also opportunities for healthcare, finance, security, and more. Through speaker events, workshops, and feedback sessions, it's designed to be a very hands-on event. It promises to upskill employees through interactive and in-depth training sessions. And it is certainly an investment, with delegate tickets costing $2,400. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
And now news from around the world. Britain's Home Secretary James Cleverly has signed an international treaty with Rwanda to deport asylum seekers. The UK Supreme Court ruled the government's original plan illegal due to the risk of Rwanda returning asylum seekers to their country of origin. DD India's correspondent Stuart Smith provides additional details from London.
Boris Johnson is expected to use his appearance at the COVID-19 inquiry to apologise for mistakes that were made by his government in the handling of the pandemic. But we also expect him to mount a pretty robust defence of some of the government responses to the COVID-19 outbreak. For example, we expect that Boris Johnson will point to things like the rollout of vaccines in this country more quickly than was seen in many other parts of the world. But up to this point, the questioning of various witnesses has painted a sometimes chaotic and dysfunctional picture of the Downing Street operation that the former Prime Minister was running during the COVID pandemic. We expect some fairly robust questioning, for example, about the timing of lockdowns imposed by Boris Johnson's government. The former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, when he spoke to the COVID inquiry, suggested that he believed that if the UK had locked down earlier at the beginning and in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, then thousands of lives could have been saved. We also expect that Boris Johnson will be asked about Partygate, that row, those controversies about parties in and around Downing Street during periods of lockdown, which were so controversial when all of the details came out and led to the eventual downfall of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. We also expect Boris Johnson to deny allegations made by an aide during evidence to this inquiry that he was not focused on COVID-19 at the beginning of the pandemic because he was away writing a book on Shakespeare. This is very much expected to be the most high-profile moment of the COVID-19 inquiry so far. Boris Johnson will be questioned on Wednesday and then on Thursday. The inquiry was set up by his government to try and go through the preparation and the responses by the UK government to the COVID-19 pandemic and also learn lessons for the future. Ollie Barrett in London reporting for DD India.
And now more news from around the world. More than 10 people have been reported dead and 25 were injured in a bus crash in Honduras on Tuesday, according to a preliminary fire services report. The bus had fallen into a river after crashing into a bridge while skidding on the highway. Scientists have unearthed 3 Inca burial sites north of the capital, Lima, dating 500 years back. The sites presumably belong to 2 adults and 1 child. This is one of its kind discoveries since the beginning of excavations 3 months ago. A mysterious respiratory illness has stricken dogs in at least 14 states, according to the American Veterinary Medical Association. Researchers are still attempting to determine the cause and nature of the disease. Symptoms including coughing can last 4 to 6 weeks, which could be mild bronchitis or could escalate to pneumonia. New York City Mayor Eric Adams on Tuesday announced the launch of an e-bike battery charging pilot program for delivery workers. This will allow an initial group of delivery workers to safely charge their lithium-ion batteries in public. It will test new technologies like battery swapping networks and secure bike parking docks. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Indian president hosts a banquet in the honor of Kenyan counterpart, emphasizes 2 countries must work together for global south. Cyclone storm Migjom weakens over central coastal Andhra Pradesh. Heavy rains leave trail of deluge and disruption. And Argentina and Inter Miami forward Lionel Messi named Time magazine's Athlete of the Year.
the news as it unfolds, we get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on, Indian President Draupadi Murmu hosted a banquet in the honor of her Kenyan counterpart William Samoei Ruto at Rashtrapati Bhavan. President Murmu emphasized that the two countries must work together, not only for the well-being and progress of the people of both countries, but also for the citizens of the Global South. And Indian Ocean neighbours, India and Kenya, have decided to enhance their maritime and defence relations apart from strengthening their ties in multiple domains, ranging from digital public infrastructure to culture and sports. Bilateral talks were held yesterday in New Delhi between India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Kenya's President William Ruto. Here are the details.
India and Kenya took their bilateral ties up several notches on Tuesday at the end of the delegation-level talks between the two sides in New Delhi. Documents for 5 memorandums of understanding were exchanged in the presence of the leaders of both the countries. Key announcements were also made on enhancing maritime and defense cooperation.
From the Kenyan side, हिंद महासागर से जुड़े हुए देशों के रूप में मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी, पायरेसी और ड्रग ट्रैफिकिंग हमारी साझा प्राथमिकता के विषय हैं। इस महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र में आपसी सहयोग को मजबूत करने के लिए हम मैरीटाइम कोऑपरेशन पर जॉइंट विजन स्टेटमेंट जारी कर रहे हैं.
A wide range of ties and issues were covered during the bilateral meet. These include MOU for cooperation in sports, particularly athletics and cricket, MOU for cooperation in the field of digital public infrastructure, extension of the cultural exchange program from 2023 to 2027, MOU between the Bureau of Indian Standards and its Kenyan counterpart, MOU between the Indian and Kenyan National Open Universities, Kenya's decision to join the International Solar Alliance and Global Biofuel Alliance. Kenya has offered its land to Indian entities for cultivation purposes. Kenya has expressed interest in trade using national currencies. Prime Minister Modi also announced India's decision to provide Kenya with $250 million as line of credit to modernize its agriculture. He said India has prioritized and expanded its ties not only with Kenya but the entire African continent in mission mode during the last 10 years.
Cultural exchange program. पिछले लगभग एक दशक में हमने मिशन मोड में अफ्रीका के साथ अपना सहयोग बढ़ाया है. मुझे विश्वास है कि राष्ट्रपति रूटो की यात्रा से हमारे द्विपक्षीय संबंधों के साथ साथ पूरे अफ्रीका महाद्वीप के साथ हमारे एंगेजमेंट को नया बल मिलेगा.
Kenyan President William Samoei Ruto appreciated India's efforts in making the African Union a part of the G20 and bolstering the voice of the Global South.
That today, because of Prime Minister Modi's engagement and championship, the African Union is now a member of the G20. I have also congratulated Prime Minister Modi for his leadership in the Global South.
Earlier in the day, the Kenyan president paid homage to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat Memorial. He was also given a ceremonial reception by President of India, Draupadi Murmu, at Rashtrapati Bhavan, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where he also inspected a guard of honor. Amritpal Singh's report, DD India, Delhi.
Well, moving on, the southern and coastal districts of East India state Odisha have been put on alert since Tuesday night with heavy rainfall forecast as severe cyclone Migjom moved northward after its landfall in Andhra Pradesh. According to the India Meteorological Department, latest update, Migjom has weakened into a deep depression over central coastal Andhra Pradesh. It's positioned approximately 100 kilometers north-northwest of Baptala and 50 kilometers southeast of Khamman, the IMD said. The system is anticipated to further lose intensity, transforming into a depression within the next 6 hours and eventually downgrading into a well-marked low-pressure system during the subsequent 6 hours, the Met Department said. Well, the third edition of India Internet Governance Forum, or IIGF 2023, took place in New Delhi's Bharat Mandapam on Tuesday. The third edition of the IIGF is being conducted under the overarching theme, Moving Forward, Calibrating Bharat's Digital Agenda. DD India correspondent Deepika had an exclusive interaction with Minister of State for Electronics and IT, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Take a listen.
First of all, many congratulations to you on having the India Internet Governance Forum 2023. When we talk about India's aim to become a developed nation by the year 2047 and also third largest economy by the year 2030, how important internet governance becomes over here?
Look, one of the important reasons for India's dramatic and sharp growth in the last 9 years, and really the transformation qualitatively and quantitatively of our economy, has been Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's focus on the digital economy. Ever since he launched the Digital India in 2015, the digital economy has grown at 2.5 times the normal economy. We were 4.5% of the total GDP in 2014, the digital economy was. Today we are 11%, and by 26 it will be 20%. So digital economy is not just transforming the lives of citizens, transforming governance and democracy. It is also creating more and more opportunities for our young Indians, creating entrepreneurship opportunities, startup opportunities, and also creating deep technological capabilities in a manner where India is being transformed as a nation. We were a consumer of technologies for 30 years. Today we are producing devices, products, platforms, solutions for the rest of the world. So all of this momentum has to be carried into the next 10 years, as the Prime Minister calls it, the India Decade. And that will be certainly one of the biggest determinants and gateways to his vision of being the third largest economy from the fifth largest and being a developed nation. So I have absolutely no doubt that both digital and entrepreneurship will play a big role in Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's vision of a Vikasit Bharat. And I have absolutely no hesitation in saying the last 9 years of transformation in the country has been deeply impacted by and enabled by his Digital India vision.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. A bike rally was organized in North India's Jammu and Kashmir to create awareness about cyber crimes. Authorities emphasized on being very conscious while using technology and spread awareness among masses about being responsible members of the society. Indian Prime Minister's Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra reached Moti Mahal in India's Agra. The yatra included awareing people about public welfare schemes of Central and Uttar Pradesh government. Free health checkup medicines were also distributed. Book fair and an exclusive exhibition cum sale of National Archives of India publications opened on Tuesday at the Heritage Building of the National Archives of India in New Delhi. A number of leading publishers and book distributors are participating in the book fair, showcasing their latest publications. And in sports, India dashed out a dominant display to beat Korea 4-2 in its opening pool match of the FIH Junior Men's Hockey World Cup on Tuesday. Arijit Singh Hundal struck a hat-trick of goals. Hundal scored in the 11th, 16th and 41st minutes, while Amandeep found the target for India in the 30th minute in the Pool C match. India next plays against Spain in its second pool match. Canada is the other country in the 4-team Pool C. India has won the tournament twice in 2001 and 2016 and finished runner-up once in 1997. And Lionel Messi has been named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year for 2023 after his move to the United States to join Major League Soccer side Inter Miami. Messi joins the likes of Simone Biles, Michael Phelps, LeBron James and the United States women's national team to win the award. Messi made his debut for the Florida-based franchise in July and announced his arrival by scoring a free kick in the final minutes to give his side a 2-1 victory. Since then, he has had a profound impact on the MLS, with their star signing on board. Inter Miami won the League's Cup, their first major trophy, beating Nashville in the final, in which Messi scored. The Argentina international scored 11 goals in 14 games in all competitions to finish the season. He was also nominated for the MLS MVP award. And Bangladesh cricket team are eyeing towards their first ever Test series win over New Zealand as they take them in the second and final Test match starting today in Dhaka. New Zealand are trailing 0-1 coming into the final Test. The Kiwis will once again be up against Bangladesh spinners who were in brilliant touch in the previous game. New Zealand lost the first Test match and sealed it by 150 runs despite the first inning heroics from Kane Williamson, who equalled Don Bradman and Virat Kohli with his 29th Test century. New Zealand crumbled owing to Taijul Islam's match-winning 10-wicket haul. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Well, let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.